Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined as always by my pal Dakota Lasky. Dak, how you doing today, bud?
Oh man, it has been a rough week for you, boy, but it is nice. I mean, now the weekend's almost over, so I was gonna say it's nice to have the weekend here, but it's almost over. But it is. We're gonna talk some more Metroid and do some questions, and these kinds of episodes are always some of my favorites. So definitely looking forward to this. Just watched the Chiefs throw an entry into the Super Bowl. And Bengals win just literally moments ago, so that was quite something. Any of my football fans out there, feel free to hit me up or in the Discord to talk about what an end to the game that was. And other than that, yeah, just been kind of finishing up the month. I don't know if you've ever heard of the show. You ever heard of the YouTube series or channel Defunct Land?
No.
Okay, so
I don't watch like any YouTube really.
So like I like to find new like YouTube series and stuff to watch. So it's like it goes into like the history of like old amusement parks that like might be defunct now or like don't exist anymore, or rides or things that never came to fruition or things that didn't go very well. So like I watched a video about like the 1964 World Fair, about the original Epcot, like the city idea, not the actual amusement park it became. I watched an hour and 40-minute video about the Disney Fast Pass, which was very, very interesting, and never thought I'd watch an hour and 40-minute video about lines and stuff like that. But it was very, very interesting. The demolition of Six Flags Astro World. So I definitely highly recommend it. I love history stuff like that, and it's really interesting. So I've been binging Defunct Land lately. So I highly recommend it to anyone who has an interest in history or amusement parks or a combination of the two.
There you go. You know what? Sometimes I take that back. Sometimes I will watch a video, but I don't know. I don't know the channel, but it's this guy, and he's got this like British accent. He's got a great voice, and he just
That slims
profiles.
it
Yeah, I know. He basically like profiles historical figures, and like sometimes I'll watch that as I'm eating dinner or whatever. Since like
Yeah.
I'll be shoveling food in my mouth, so I can't talk. But I'll watch it. He does like Vlad the Impaler or like JFK,
that's cool.
just stuff like that. So
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
my favorite series before we move on is anything from Red Letter Media, Best of the Worst. I absolutely love that. So anyone who knows about that, you're pretty awesome, because that's my favorite YouTube channel out there, amongst others. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, I watch like zero YouTube. It's just not really my deal. But that's okay. I don't have to. You know what else I don't watch, Dak, is football. Maybe like this is gonna sound like ultra Canadian of me. I hate watching football. I can't stand watching football, and baseball too, for that matter. Like any sport where it's like stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. It loses me really quickly. And obviously my game is hockey. Like I love watching hockey, which sometimes can be a little bit stop start, but generally speaking, you have like flowing action and back and forth and stuff like that. That's why I like watching hockey or basketball or lacrosse, stuff like that. So every year around this time, people are like, "Oh, Super Bowl, Super Bowl." And yeah, it just like totally isn't even a thing for me, because I think I can count on, I won't say one hand, but two hands, I bet you, the amount of NFL games that I've watched in my life. It's just it ain't my thing.
I like both. I mean, yeah, I like the continuous action of hockey and basketball for sure, but I also like the ebb and flow of a good game of football. Baseball, I think, is super boring to watch.
Yeah.
Baseball is only good to go to in person, so you can turn to your friends and chat with them while a baseball game is going on. But I mean, I do like the stop and go nature, because you have high amounts of intensity and action, and then you kind of get the in between where you can take a break and kind of break it down, or do something else, or kind of understand the strategy of what's going on. I mean, it's the same reason why I enjoy watching like competitive Halo, which is consistent action, or like competitive Smash, it's like consistent action without much breaks. But like what I really love watching is like a good game of Counter Strike, where you have like rounds that start and end, and you have high moments of action, and then the strategy that goes into those, and then the breakdown and the ebb and flow of that in between. So I think there's
Yeah.
highlights and good stuff to both. And I mean, I was like football growing up. Grew up as a Giants fan. I'm now more so a Jets fan because a friend of mine has season tickets, so we like to go and watch the Jets lose. But I always like a good game of football.
I'll put over even Canadian. I'm going to sound even more Canadian here, but if I'm going to watch football, I like watching the CFL more than the NFL. The CFL is the Canadian Football League, and the difference being that there's only 3 downs in the Canadian Football League, so like you see a lot more throws than you do running plays, which I find a little bit more exciting.
Hmm.
But even CFL, I think you're right. Like the strategy that goes into executing a play is like pretty awesome, but I think a lot of that is lost on me. So I just I like a little bit more free flowing kind of action in my sports. Speaking of, by the way, I promise we're going to talk some Metroid here in a second. But so my favorite wrestling event of the year is the Royal Rumble.
Oh my god.
Man, I think this was
This is one of the worst Royal Rumble
yeah.
pay-per-views and Royal Rumble
This was
matches, I think,
this was
ever.
just an absolute stinker. Like
Yeah, it was
really,
rough.
it was a stinker. The best match was the opening one, which is
Yep.
what I missed. So
Yep.
I watched the women's rumble and I was just like, this is like just boring. Like nothing was happening. No stories kind of being told. Nothing was further. No developments. And they kind of did that for the men's one too, where it was like nobody popped for anybody's entrance theme because like nobody knows who anybody's
Oh my
entrance
god,
theme.
every time, and I mean this is no offense to the women in the Royal Rumble, but like I don't know any of their themes except like, Charlotte Flair or
Even the
like
men,
Becky.
I didn't know any of
No,
the
the
men.
the,
That
the
the
men I
guy who
know.
looked like Freddie Mercury came out, and I was like, "Who is this?"
Well, yeah, but I knew more of their themes than like so many of the women that came out. I'm like, I don't know who this is. But also I don't even think I think a majority of the people that were in the women's Royal Rumble were quote unquote legends and not active wrestlers, which is another reason why I didn't really know who they were because I was like, I mean, I did pop for the Right to Censor theme, not gonna lie. I thought that was great.
That was great. Yeah.
That really popped me. And I know you're not a big fan of Lita. I thought Lita coming back was cool. I didn't. She was never the best technical wrestler, but I was like, hey, it's Lita. That's cool. I know who that is. Yeah. A quick review. Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. Solid match. Ending was crap. Women's Royal Rumble could take it or leave it. Wasn't. I mean, I thought
Oh no,
Ronda.
it was bad. It
I
was
thought.
it was bad. When they
Yeah.
eliminated Sasha, like, and I don't even
Oh,
like
that was
Sasha Banks,
so bad.
but that was bad. Like that, the
Yeah.
rest of the match after that was just dragged, really
Um.
dragged.
Yeah, that was pretty rough. I thought Becky Lynch versus Dewdrop that didn't really do anything for me. And why is this? What's her name?
I
Still
thought
Dewdrop.
that was the best one on the show, which was hilarious because like the arena was on fire during this
It was
match or
literally
something.
on fire. Yeah,
Yeah,
the sign, the pyro, like they had to evacuate the area underneath the sign and to bring it down and put out the fire and extinguish it and then raise it back up. And you and I talked the Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley match was kind of meh, especially the ending was so bad. I hate when someone goes over because someone else interfered and they are like, I'm the new champion, I'm so good. I'm like, you only won because some other dude came out. It's like when
no,
RVD
that could
beat.
be effective, but it
I,
wasn't
do-
effective in
I
this in
never
this
think
setting.
I never think it's effective. Like one of my least favorite endings to a match is, and in a favorite match of mine is the one night stand match RVD versus Cena, where RVD beats Cena. But the only reason he beats Cena is because Edge comes out and spears him or whatever. So I'm like, like he should be able to just beat him on his own. I hate when someone else comes in and helps him out, and they're like, "Oh, I still won. I'm the best." I'm like, "No, you're not. It was a 2v1 at the end, and that's the only reason you won." So that was kind of lame. Uh, the multi or the what was it? The mixed tag match that was
You
rough.
know what? For what it was, that was better than I thought it was going to be, and I'll just
Yes,
say that.
I agree. And then yeah, the men's Royal Rumble match was
Oh,
probably one of the worst. I feel bad for Kofi. His spot was a big botch, and you could tell they had something planned for that. I did like Johnny Knoxville showing up and taking a bump. That was always good to see him.
you know what? Bad Bunny, dude.
Bad Bunny, yep.
This guy is better than like half the roster, which is absolutely crazy.
That was actually, I think, a cool surprise because I did not
Yeah,
expect that as much as I
I think that
wanted.
was the highlight of the men's rumble was Bad Bunny doing his thing, and like
Yeah,
seeing Shane McMahon is cool, but then like
I always pop for
he's just
Shane
like
McMahon. I'm
I
like,
I pop for him the
yeah,
first time I see him, but then he shows up and like hangs in there with all the like the good thing about Shane McMahon back in the day was like he would just get beat up by all these like real wrestlers And now, like that doesn't happen. He just like legitimately wrestles them, and it's like, dude,
Yeah, I agree.
you're not a wrestler, you
Yeah,
know?
I think one of the appeals of him in the old, like when he was originally his original run or whatever it is back in the early 2000s, was that yeah, he could barely keep up, but he would have to do some crazy spot to like keep up.
Or to have the Mean Street Posse
Yeah, he had like
doing
he
his
really
bidding.
put his body on the line to like
Yeah.
make up for the fact that he's not a wrestler. Now he just like does his like rope a dope punches, and I'm like, dude, this is not like give me the coast to coast, otherwise I don't care.
I think that this was
Yeah.
definitely a bottom 10, maybe a bottom 5 Rumble. Like, it was bad.
Yeah, it was bad. Of course, Brock Lesnar comes out. I'm like, oh, we know who's winning,
Yeah.
especially because he lost earlier, and indeed that happens. Yeah, all in all, a pretty forgettable pay per view, which is a shame because that's usually my favorite one of the year. I always like watching the Rumble, so
Yeah, me too.
you know, is what it is, I guess.
Too bad, but let's move away from the sports talk. Let's get to some Metroid talk here, because we have a ton of questions that were left over from last week's Q&A that we did not have time to get to. I don't even. We spent so long talking about sports today. I don't even know if we're gonna have time to get to them all today, but we're gonna do our absolute best. So
I was gonna
let's
say
just, yeah.
there's even more I could talk. You know, the Halo TV show trailer
Well,
just dropped. Like, there's a
you know what
lot.
we should talk about too, just very
Oh
quickly.
yeah, yes.
Is the Retro Studios hires, and you know, the old joke, Retro Studios is hiring a new janitor. Resurfaced this week, but Retro Studios hiring some tools engineers and I believe storyboard or something like
No, it was
something like that.
it was a tools engineer and a technologies engineer. The tweet said, yeah, tools engineer and technology engineer to help join us on our journey to develop Metroid Prime 4. So I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I
Right.
feel like it's been a while since we got something about Retro hiring someone. Last time they tweeted
I
something out
agree,
was
actually, yeah.
end of or mid December of 2020, over a year ago. So yeah, I mean, it's a classic thing of Retro saying they're hiring someone, we're looking for people, and everyone's like, oh my god, this game's never going to come out because they have no idea how the world works. I'm pretty confident that we're going to be seeing some Prime 4 in the relatively near future, and from what it looks like, it seems like they're looking to hopefully get the game done soon. But I'm no expert, and there are certainly more informative people or more informed people out there than I. But I would say that them hiring these positions, or even in general, would seems like a good thing, and I'm glad that they're taking their time, and hopefully the game is awesome as a result.
Yeah, so we just passed the 3-year anniversary of the development
Yes.
restarting. So a bunch of people, when they saw that Retro was hiring, excuse me, for these positions, were just like, this game is never coming out. Everybody relax. I mean, development literally restarted 3 years ago with a 3-year turnaround time.
Yep.
It's just not feasible for a AAA game. So I'm sure that we'll get something soon, and we do have that to look forward to on
Can't
the
wait.
horizon.
Can't
So,
wait.
but right now we got some questions to look forward to. So we better.
Yes.
We better
Now we've got
mosey on
14
here.
minutes into the show. We should start talking about some Metroid.
All right, let's do it. So Cap, our boy Cap, asks, regardless of whether or not the presence of live Chozo was presented as a big enough deal, it was a new development for the series. Is it time for the Chozo to step out of the shadows and be an ongoing presence, or should they retreat back into obscurity and only appear for impactful moments? Will we grab our upgrades in Metroid 6 from Chozo or Chozo statues? So we covered this a little bit.
I was gonna say, I
next
thought we
week, or
answered
last
this.
week.
We answered this
So
already.
I think that you probably will grab items from Chozo statues because I don't know, like why wouldn't you? That's just it feels like a natural thing to me. I think that you'll probably see Chozo maybe step back a little bit and not be the focus in the next game like Metroid Dread, but I don't think it's gonna go back to being like this fabled species of beings. I could see learning about the Chozo, learning what happened to the Chozo. Like I think that now that the box has been opened a little bit, where you saw live Chozo and you learned about some of the different tribes of Chozo. I think that we can learn a little bit more about what happened to them, where they are, if there are any more in the world. So while I don't think that they'll be a focus, I think that they'll be a little bit more of a spotlight shined upon them.
I'm not entirely sure, actually. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see the Chozo at all, or at the very least, I mean, I could definitely see us not getting items from Chozo statues. That's something that is kind of a detail that could make sense being changed when you start, put Samus in a whole new story arc with different characters and different places. Maybe that Chozo never even been before, which I think might be interesting. I don't know. I mean, we talked about this in the last episode where, like, now the kind of it's a double-edged sword where, like, you kind of have to eventually bring the Chozo to the forefront, but then once you do, the mystique of their, species and all that's kind of lost. And now it's like, okay, well, do they maintain that kind of active role in the story, or do you kind of push them back into a role they were in previously? And I think there's a middle ground you can find there, but it's certainly a hard one to balance. And I'm not sure, like, do I need major Chozo characters being like the villains? Again, like, not necessarily. I could maybe see some Chozo characters being involved in the story, but I truly don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they completely do something entirely new, kind of more so along the lines of Fusion, where, like, they introduce completely new characters and species and worlds and all of that, where we don't see the Chozo at all. But I don't know. It depends on how much they weight, like, the Chozo appearing in Dread, like, because it was such a big part of the end of a current story arc. Are they going to kind of leave the Chozo as we've met them now in Dread to that arc, or are they going to now incorporate them more fully now that they've been more established? Not really sure. I'm not against it either way, but I will say that I wouldn't be surprised if, like, the smaller details, like getting items from a Chozo statue, changes maybe.
Yeah, I could see that, and I do think that there is, like, there does come a time where, like, you build up a mystique, and you do need to peel back the
Yeah.
layers. So I mean, I don't, think it was a bad thing that Metroid Dread did
No,
that, but
definitely not.
it is hard to put that back afterwards. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. Spirefan asks, and of course our boys talked about Metroid Prime
Yes,
Hunters.
sir.
It's never been said, but who do the podcast hosts main? Even if you hardly played, imagine you were asked to enter an event for charity. Who are you playing? Okay, Dak. Who is, like, the Meta Knight
Who is
of
the
this?
Meta
Like, who's
Knight?
who's the cheap character that you can just be really good at, even when you're not very good?
Uh, I mean, I always thought that Trace was pretty cheap because his, like, affinity weapon gives him invisibility and whatnot. He has a sniper that can one shot. So, like, I was a Trace main back in the day. I've always, liked sniping in FPS games, so I played Trace. But, like, I remember, you had the, particular glitches that were involved in Hunters. So you had, like, the ground freeze glitch, which was maybe a bit more technical than, like, Meta Knight, who could just, anyone can kind of pick them up and use them. But, like, Noxus had that. I feel like I don't know if there was, like, look, I'll be honest. I'm not someone who is super super well versed in, like, high level hunters, so I'm sure Spire fan would probably be the best person to answer this, and I'm sure he will answer this on the Discord once he's heard this discussion. Um, I always felt like just Trace. I mean, Silex is also really annoying, but I don't know if he was, like, cheap annoying or just annoying annoying. I feel like uh, I feel like I would go with probably Noxus or Trace. Personally, though, I picked Trace or Samus. From what I remember, Samus's missiles had, like, a homing effect to them when you use
Hmm.
them. So, like, other characters use missiles, they didn't have that effect, but Samus's did. And that was kind of her, like, affinity thing, if I remember correctly. So I used Trace and Samus. Those were my picks. I'd probably end up going with Trace ultimately, just because he's really good. Probably the best character of the game as far as I know, and sniper. So I mean, can't go wrong with that in an arena first person shooter. So that'd be my pick.
Yeah, I would just pick whoever is, like, the cheapest. But I will say
For
that,
charity, man,
like,
come on.
well, even in Smash, even in, like, Mario Kart, like, obviously I'm not a big competitive game kind of guy, right? But in all of those games, like in Smash, like, when I was younger, I used to play as Marth a lot, and that would have been my main. But now
Mhm.
that, like, I'm older and I don't really care about winning, losing, like, whatever. I just, like, my main is random. Like, I want to play. There's 80 plus characters in Smash Bros, and I don't want to play just one or two of them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to play as
Mhm.
all of them. So I don't really, I don't really do the whole main thing anymore.
My advice is always pick a top tier. Why work harder where you can work smarter? Uh, obviously everyone knows I'm a huge Ridley fan, and I've been using Ridley in Ultimate for a few years now. But I've recently picked up Pokemon Trainer. I did use Pokemon Trainer a little bit back in Brawl, but I mean PT is really good in Ultimate. Much better than Pokemon Trainer was back in the Brawl days, who was kind of like a lower mid tier, high low tier character. Nowadays, Pokemon Trainer is very much a a higher tier, not top tier, but higher tier character, and can certainly be solo mained. A very good character. I don't really do random just because there are so many different characters and styles that like I hate picking a character that's just not fun to use or I don't have fun with, and I like mastering a character or at least attempting to or pretending like I'm attempting to. So that's kind of the appeal for me. And Ridley's kind of sucks, so I want to use a character that doesn't suck. But yeah, I'm always pick a top tier.
Yeah, that's fair, and it obviously depends on your context. When I'm just messing around on my
Yeah, if you're
couch,
just
you know,
yeah,
who
exactly. You're
cares?
just messing around. Who cares? Yeah.
Metroid 35 has a cool question. What kind of merchandise would you like to see come with Prime 4 or continue with Dread? I would personally love to have a Figma of the Dread power suit and an official Metroid plushie as well as some pins. So, all that sounds good to me, except for pins. I don't get it. Like, I don't know. Pins just aren't my thing. Like, what do you put them on? Your jacket? Like
Put them
your
on your
bag?
backpack. I like putting pins in my backpack.
I
Or
guess
yeah,
like I don't have a
different
backpack,
bags.
so
Well,
I
we're getting
wouldn't
we're getting older out here, so we don't really carry around backpacks anymore. You put them in your suitcase or something.
like
Your fanny
even
pack.
back in the day, my backpack didn't have no pins. There were no
Yeah,
pins on that thing.
I was never really a big pin guy either, but over the years I started. I don't know. I wouldn't say I go out of my way to get them. To be honest, I'm kind of growing out of like the collecting merchandise phase of my life, where like I don't want to have all this stuff lying around, and all this like junk, not junk, but like all this just stuff lying
Sure.
around.
Well, see,
So
I love collecting stuff like for Metroid, for Zelda. I have like
yeah,
a huge Metroid and Zelda collection. And Doom has like
I
this
know.
shrine
I'm
that he
sure he's
worships to
like
every
shriveling
night.
up hearing what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, because I'm not trying to knock any of that. And to be honest, I have a bunch
No,
of
no, me neither. Yeah.
I have too many. For me, it's mostly like I have too many knickknacks. To
Yeah.
like I'm looking around. I've got my Halo stuff all lying around, but I've been really into like collecting like um game like box arts and like framing them on my walls. Like I have a framed Donkey Kong 64 box art in front of me. I have ODST, I have Majora's Mask, I have Destiny 2 Beyond Light, I have Halo 3, and I have Metroid Samus Returns, and I have them framed like they were like movie posters. I've been really into that recently, and I like that because it doesn't take up like space in my room, but it looks really cool. And that's kind of where I'm at with like pins as well. Is I'm always down for pins because they don't take up space really. I can put them on something. They're very small, footprint wise, and so that
Right.
I would be down for that of all the things actually. A cool like enamel kind of stuff. Really
I didn't
speaks
mean
to me.
to crusade against pins. Like pins would be fine for me. I would love more Metroid puzzles. There's a Super Metroid
Ooh,
puzzle which I
love
want to get my
puzzles.
hands on. But I like doing puzzles. Like it's a fun activity, and then you can frame them after they look cool on your wall.
Yeah,
And just like little, like actually there's a fair amount of like World of Nintendo figurines. Like there's
yeah,
Samus Gravity Suit, Dark Suit. But like I want more of that, just not of Samus. Like
I
I think it'd be
agree.
cool to have like Kraid or to have
Hmm.
Silex or to have, you know what I mean, like those kind of things where it's like, yeah, if you browse Etsy, you can see like a ton of cool stuff. Like
Yes.
there's like super missiles and there's Mother Brain thing. Like give me
Yeah,
some of that stuff, you know?
I agree, and I kind of wish there was more Metroid apparel that was a bit more subtle. Like I don't really want to walk around like with shirts that's just like Metroid Dread in big letters. I don't know. Like give me something a little more subtle. I'm kind of down for
I think
that.
the official stuff doesn't look very good.
The official stuff is very
It's either
gamery to me.
not subtle at all or it's too subtle because you have that orange hoodie in New York that has like I think like on the very bottom it has like the Samus sprite, and other than that it's just like
Yeah,
an orange T-shirt or
yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Not really down for that. But there's a lot of cool stuff they could do, and I hope they kind of try to license out some more stuff because
Yeah,
it's for people who want that, they're totally down for it, and that's cool to me.
yeah. Give me a Chorizo figure. Like, come on.
Hmm.
Um, Quaid has an awesome question. It's a two-parter. Which Prime only ability would you like to see show up in a 2D Metroid? I have an easy answer for this.
Okay.
Scanning.
Yes. Yes.
Scanning should
Hmm.
100% be a part of 2D Metroid. I don't know if you would like if you could just actually have like a scan visor, or maybe it's an item or like whatever, something. Even if it's just a collectible that gives you information in the same vein as scanning something in the Prime series. That has to come to the next 2D Metroid, because like
Yeah.
there comes a point where it's just like, all right, I don't really care about this, like missile expansion number 73. I just want to like know a little bit more about ZDR or
Yeah.
about the BSL or whatever, right?
That's 100% where I am, because you know me, I'm not like a super hard completionist, so like it doesn't speak to me like, oh, I gotta get every missile expansion, but I really love collecting lore, and that kind of motivates me to go around. And of course, Prime 2D, Rip Prime 2D, I think they perfected the scanning system in that little game there, that little demo. It would like this would work so well. And to kind of jump off that point, what I would love to see is just more just incorporate visors in general, right? Like it would be really cool to play a 2D Metroid where you could change different visors in the game that allows you to like maybe see a room differently. You give yourself an X-ray visor, whatever it is, and you can kind of approach rooms differently. And I'm sure they come up with so many cool different puzzles and new ways to approach a room or traverse the map by being able to change like what you can see in a room depending on what visor you have, and that kind of jumps off the scan visor too. But there's so many different ways they could incorporate that, and that's one of the big highlights of the Prime series themselves, along with scanning, but all the different visors you can get. So I'd be totally down to see that in a 2D game.
Yeah, totally. All right, and so the flip side of that, which 2D only ability would you like to see show up in Prime 4?
Ooh,
Um,
I feel
I
like you got an
mean,
answer to that one already.
yeah, I mean, it sounds cliche. I feel like we've talked about it a ton before, but like they got to find a way to get the speed booster and the shine spark into
Yeah.
Prime 4. And our buddy Spire actually had a pretty cool idea for how this could work. I don't know if any of you guys out there have played Majora's Mask, but
Which you
when you're a
should.
Goron, you roll, and after a while, you start to build up speed. And I mean, abracadabra. That feels like a pretty decent way of how you could do a speed booster in Metroid Prime 4. And actually, for all of its faults, I think that Other M did the speed booster in Shine Spark pretty
Yeah,
decently. So
I agree.
that's a blueprint as well.
I really don't think it would be that hard to implement, like especially if they add like a run button. You just hit the run button after a certain amount of time. You kind of go into third person, and you have that camera view. I think that would totally work. I honestly even think it could work in first person, but and we discussed this on the
It could. You just
Discord.
might get dizzy.
You might get dizzy. I mentioned this on Twitter and on Discord, but like one of my favorite things about Destiny is when you get hit by like a big physics blast or something and you just like fly super high speed in the air, but you stay in first person. You can feel that speed just by like how things are moving past your frame of view and your perspective. But in a game that already takes you out of first person to go into third person for like the morph ball, for example, I think it would make sense to pull back to that camera view as well for like a speed booster or shine spark. And I don't think it would really be that super hard to implement. I think it more so comes down to like level design and allowing for that to work, right? Like it does really change how you build the levels and design of the game. So I think it could definitely happen. 100% think that's what we would need to see. And I don't really think there's something in like 2D Metroids that like uh, is a higher priority than that. I think like that's something that really needs to happen.
I mean, pretty much everything else is already over there, right?
That's
Like,
true. I mean, unless you count like the melee counter or whatever, yeah. Or the
um,
well, like you have like the dash now, right? Like you have the flash shift. Like that could be something that could
true.
work into a Prime game as well, which would be really hype. I don't know if they would do that, but I'm always down for extra movement stuff and making the game feel very fun and smooth in that way. So that'd be really cool.
Seeing the screw attack would be good, and
Yeah,
like
but
good,
that's
not the
been
way that it
yeah
is now.
yes. I was gonna say it has been in the games before, but
Yeah,
an improved version would be nice.
yeah, the way it is now, I feel like it is just not good at all.
Mm-hmm.
Spirefan is back. Do you want to see Metroid games with more cosmetic support? Think Fusion Suit in Prime, but now you can just scan Amiibo, and he uses Yoshi as an example. And Samus's various suit changes colors accordingly, so green and orange. Dude, I
Surprised you
think that'd
didn't
be
say
awesome.
Kirby. I was waiting
Ugh.
for where's the Kirby amiibo? You can get a pink and red suit or something, kind of like the Samus melee alt color.
Can you
Um,
imagine? Ugh.
you know, I'm not against this. For me, it's kind of like, are you? I don't know. Like, on one hand, I kind of like staying consistent within the terms of like the story and like I don't know. Do I want to see like Samus showing up with all these crazy colors and effects and whatnot? But like, I don't think it necessarily like if you don't want to do it, then you don't have to. Like, it's an option for people who do want to have that kind of customization. I like that kind of customization overall. It's not even just in multiplayer games, but in single player as well. But I don't know. It's like I'm thinking like, would I want to play a Halo? Like, would I want to replay the Halo 3 campaign, but Master Chief is like purple? Like, I don't know if I really would. I like him looking how he's supposed to look, but and I kind of feel the same way about Samus. But I'm not against it. I always am down for more customization and ways for players to express themselves, both internally in terms of how they play the game, but also externally in terms of how their character looks and how they look within the game. So I'm for this. I think it'd be cool. I don't know if I would always use it, but I'm sure eventually I'd be like, all right, I've beaten the game a couple times. Now I want Samus with cat ears to
Yeah,
play in Prime
exactly.
4. You know, like that. That I'm totally for. So yeah, I would definitely like to see this, and yeah, the stuff like getting cool different like amiibos to change the suit you have, or let me get the watermelon suit from Dread, or let me mix and match maybe some different parts so I can get like I don't know, make my own suit or something, or my own shader or colors and whatnot. Like that'd be really cool. So changing Samus's lights or her visor, that would be sick. So yeah, I'm definitely down for this.
100%, like 100%. And if you don't want to do it, yeah, you
Then
don't
you have
have
to
to
do
do
it.
it.
Yeah,
But I feel
exactly.
like if you include it, even if you limited it just to the Metroid amiibo. Like I'm looking at my Metroid amiibo right now. Let's say you scanned Dark Samus and you got like the Phazon suit, or you scanned Zero Suit Samus and you got like a light blue suit with like a yellow helmet or something like that. Or
Mm-hmm.
go down the list, etc., etc. I think that that would be awesome. And like if you scanned like the Super Mario amiibo and all of a sudden Samus has like red shoulder pads and a blue suit and a red helmet, like I don't know, I think that would be great.
The
And
big M on
obviously
it.
it's not quote unquote canon, and like it's just
No,
meant to be a silly little add-on, so I feel like what's the harm. Yeah,
no,
I think that'd be awesome.
I'm 100% down with that.
Minneapolis King has a couple questions here, a couple good ones. First off, do you want Prime 4 to follow the trend of open worlds in gaming we have seen, such as in Breath of the Wild and Halo Infinite, or would you rather they stick with the formula of previous Prime games with set maps and rooms? You've played Halo Infinite, and I haven't, so maybe you should go first here and just kind of
Uh,
give your opinion.
here's this is hard to kind of base off Halo Infinite because I don't think the idea necessarily of like Halo going open world is bad. I just think it wasn't executed very well by 343 in Halo Infinite because they just like it feels very rushed and very repetitive and very empty and shallow. So I don't think the idea fundamentally is bad, but the execution wasn't great. Personally though, like I don't need everything to be open world for I like a focused like design and a focused kind of game that can allow you freedom but also point you in key points of action and compelling story and scenes and whatnot, and not necessarily just leave you with a big sandbox that kind of at times feels like it's more box than sand. So I don't know. I think if it's executed well, it could be good. But at the end of the day, I'm not necessarily of the mind that Metroid Prime needs that. I think a really good Metroid Prime game can have those elements of exploration and freedom without being like truly open world. Because I don't need to play a Metroid Prime game where I'm like, all right, I gotta go and do this little subquest and this little subquest and that and that. But then again, some elements of Metroid Prime are already kind of like that. I'm not for or against it. I really do think it comes down to execution because, like, Minneapolis King brings up Breath of the Wild as well, which I think is an open world game that's executed for the most part a lot better. And I really enjoyed that game. So, uh, I don't know. Maybe Zelda's formula is better suited for that. At times, though, it certainly also kind of feels empty and shallow, but who's to say that that couldn't work for Metroid Prime? I'm not entirely against it, but at this point I feel like I'd rather just a more focused experience that isn't necessarily like go here and do this thing, go here and do that thing, and in a kind of like just I don't know repetitive nature maybe too Ubisoftness. That's kind of how I feel about these games. Again, I feel like it entirely comes down to execution. I'm not entirely against it, but I don't know if Metroid Prime needs it.
So here's my thought when I read this question: is like what defines an open world game in Metroid Prime 4? Is it not having to go through doors and connect to separate rooms? Because, like, I feel like that's a very superfluous definition of open world.
Yeah,
Because, in some ways, in many ways, like, you kind of have an open world game in Metroid Prime as it is, because you can go a lot. I mean, you can go to a lot of places. Now, you can't necessarily progress in a lot of places, but I mean, in Breath of the Wild, you can't necessarily progress in a lot of places without certain abilities either. So, like,
Hmm.
I feel like in that sense, it might just be going open world for the sake of going open world. So, like, I wouldn't want to see just like a one big map that kind of, you have your starting area and then it turns into snowy, and then maybe the other side is the desert, and there's your fire area. Like, I feel like that's just kind of like basically what you'd have for Metroid already, just without the connecting doors. And if all we're getting rid of is the connecting doors, and like, I don't care. I'd rather just have like that tight level design world as a puzzle kind of
Yeah.
aesthetic. Where like in Metroid Prime games, you already have items hidden in this world anyways, um, which is kind of akin to how, let's say, Koroks are hidden in Breath of the Wild. But I mean, I'm sure that there are ways that you can do this, and it would be awesome. And like, I think that the goal should probably be to create a world in Metroid Prime 4, which is, feels like a seamless world. And I think that you can do that if you're going quote unquote open world, or if you're going a traditional Metroid Prime style, anyways. So I think it depends like what your context of being an open world game is. Because if
Yeah.
it's like following markers on a map, then no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
But
like
if it's,
yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Like the line of like what is open world and what isn't kind of gets blurred at times, but I think kind of how the Metroid Prime formula works already does have elements of like open worldness. But yeah, like you certainly have areas you can't get to and things feel a bit more connected and focused. And I like that. And again, like I'm hoping like Metroid Prime 4 allows us maybe to travel to different planets again, maybe having different destinations to go to, but even then those aren't necessarily like super, I don't know. It's hard to define like what exactly like an open world game is these days. And
I
I, I
agree.
I'm kind of I hope it has more focus than maybe some of the other open world games, quote unquote, that we've seen lately. Again, I don't want to be playing a Metroid Prime game where it's like, all right, you have a bunch of these kind of repetitive quests going around, and it's one big map, and you just kind of free roam it. I kind of want something maybe closer to the original Prime games, but still having elements of that. I'm not against the big map as long as it does have those tight levels and areas you can explore, and it really feeds into a solid experience that's kind of curated for you to have the best gameplay moments, not necessarily just kind of free roam it the whole time and kind of free ball it and whatever. So I don't know. It's hard to put into words how I feel because I certainly am not I certainly don't have the right words or expertise to kind of formulate what I'm trying to say. But I part of me is afraid that like you know it kind of loses that like nature of Metroidness by just being able to like, all right, you're Samus, you can go and do whatever you want. Like stuff like open worlds where like, okay, maybe it's a day night system or something like that. It's kind of cool.
I
But
don't even think those are like an open world. That's just a video game thing,
no, but that's
like,
something that's very common for those kinds of games and something that's kind
sure.
of related
I
to them.
wouldn't, I mean, it all depends on what your definition is, and what the
Yeah,
context is.
I would
And
say I don't
so,
really have a good answer for that. I wouldn't be against having elements of that though, and maybe if they're a solid advancement on the original Metroid Prime formula, then why not? But I just don't want it to be kind of like empty and shallow. Like I want a nice, vibrant, like dense world where there's I don't have to like walk 10,000 feet to get from one thing to another without anything happening. I guess.
let's keep going here. Another one from Minneapolis King. If Metroid Fusion gets a remaster or remake, what are the chances that they have an option to play the original GBA pixel art form, similar to how this worked in Dragon Quest XI? I think that those options, I think the chance of that is probably pretty low. And if I'm being honest, I don't think that I would want that. Like, maybe I shouldn't say that. If they did it, that's fine, but I certainly wouldn't use it. I've played Dragon Quest XI, and I never used the pixel option to play that game. Just because why would you? Like, if I can play Metroid Dread the way that it is right now, or if I can play like a pixely version of it, I'll probably just play Metroid Dread the way it is now. Now, if the pixel looks great, then whatever. But I don't know. I guess I already have Metroid Fusion, and the whole point of reimagining Metroid Fusion is to give it some modern day quality of life improvements, and maybe the most obvious of those is updating the graphics. So I don't think that there would be a reason to go back and play it in Game Boy Advance pixel form. But I mean, hey, if people wanted that, maybe. But I don't think that it would happen either way. I don't think it would happen.
I don't think it would happen, but I think it'd be cool to kind of have like a graphics switch, like, and you could just toggle it back and forth. I don't know. That might be interesting.
Well, let me tell you another reason why I think it wouldn't happen is because I'm sure that when Metroid Fusion gets remixed and remastered, there are going to be a ton of new areas and stuff too that aren't going to have existing rooms in Fusion that you can just quickly switch to pixels. So they would have to build basically these rooms in HD and also in pixel form as well. So I think that that's an extra reason why it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, but I mean, would it be like that much of an undertaking to create then a couple extra rooms in like pixel form? I don't know. Maybe not.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Oh.
I wouldn't be against it, but I also feel like if they're gonna remake Fusion and or remaster it, they'd probably include like the original or something. You know, you could just play it that way, maybe separately. I don't know.
Ooh, I don't think so either. But no, let's move on. Kiwi Talks has a quick one here for us. Would you like to see the Luminoth or Aether appear in another game? Well, my answer is no.
Okay.
That story is told. I don't need to go back.
Yeah, I am totally for expanding on parts of the Metroid lore that we kind of haven't learned too much about. There's a lot more meat on the bone. So like, you know, going back to Metroid Prime Hunters, there are a ton of species that are represented in that game that like could easily be brought back and expanded upon. Whereas like the Luminoth, I think were pretty solidly expanded upon in Metroid Prime 2. Like I wouldn't be against seeing them again though. I don't think it's necessary. I'd rather see like the Kraken come back, or you know whatever the Noxus is, the the Vozon, whatever his race, species is, like stuff like that. Would that could still have, like, has a lot of potential to be expanded upon more. But I'm not against the Luminoth coming back. I think that might be interesting. You know, I don't think the Chozo are the only species that have to, be the only ones that come back time and time again or be represented multiple times. It might be cool to see those other species show up again. So I'm not necessarily against it.
I could accept a cameo role or something like that, but I'd rather new than see.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather new as well, or expanding on a species that hasn't really gotten enough time in the spotlight.
Jet has a cool question. Have you ever played any Metroid ROM hacks? And if so, which ones would you recommend, if any?
Can we legally answer this? No, I'm kidding.
Nintendo just took down like a ton of Gilvasunner's YouTube music today, so maybe we should be careful. But my answer to you, if AM2R counts and Prime 2D counts, I don't know if they do or not.
I don't think they count.
Games.
Yeah.
But so I've played those. But my answer to you, my friend, would be not yet. But I have something brewing that I will be playing almost every single one soon. So there we go.
I'll admit I've really never got into ROM hacks for Metroid or Pokemon or really any Nintendo game or any game really at all. I don't know why. I just never really got into playing ROM hacks. I know there are a bunch of like cool Pokemon ROM hacks I never really got to check out. I'm sure there are many cool ones for Metroid. I mean, I know of a couple of them. Like I think like what Hyper Metroid's one of them.
There's Super Duper Metroid. There's Hyper Metroid. There's Metroid Rogue Dawn.
Yeah, Rogue Dawn. That was the other one I was thinking of. So like I'm somewhat familiar with them, but they're not really games that I've like sat down to really play. But I think that also comes with the fact that like my favorite Metroid games aside from Fusion are the 3D FPS ones. So like I've never like if there were more mods of those games, I'd probably play those more-ish. Whereas if I was going to play another 2D Metroid, I'd just go and play Fusion again, or I guess Dread now, or Super. But that also comes down to laziness and like other options. I've just spent time playing other games too, and I'm just a lazy dude. So maybe I should go out and, if anything, I would love if someone could recommend us ROM hacks that we should check out, because I feel like we've answered this question before, or it's been talked about, and we've both been like, no, we don't know, we haven't played them. And I've never really been told, like, what's the ROM hack I should check out? Like, if I have to play any ROM hack, what is it?
Give me a few months, and I will tell you. Because I plan to play them.
Oh, are you spoiling something or teasing something, man? Because it's really
maybe
subtle.
A tease, not a spoiler, but I do have a tease, but I'm not going to talk about it now.
Well, if anyone's listening to this, please recommend me a ROM hack, but also tell me. Don't tell me, but also tell me where I could play them, because I don't know anything about that stuff. I'm sure I could go and figure it out, but I'm again lazy. So if you have a recommendation, please let me know, because I'm down to check out anything if it's a fun experience.
All right, Focused Wombat has a cool one here that's topical. If Microsoft purchased Nintendo, how do you think they would change the future of the Metroid franchise?
I
So
have no
this is
idea.
a loaded question that I think has a couple different layers. I think that if Microsoft, and this is just my gut, maybe I'm totally wrong. I think that if Microsoft purchased Nintendo for Metroid specifically, that would pretty much be the end of 2D Metroid. I do think that. I think that they would just make Metroid Prime games, and I think that those games would be more leaning towards a direction of a traditional first-person shooter. That being said, because I don't know, that might have sounded like a negative because I think that that would be a negative, but I think that if Microsoft was in charge of Metroid, and let's say hypothetically that Microsoft had purchased Nintendo 20 years ago, I think that Metroid would be a much bigger series than it is now because this is the type of series that like a Western audience typically is more into. And Microsoft being a Western company, I think could have seen the value in that. Whereas Nintendo has kind of been a little bit stop start because this isn't the franchise that the Eastern audience has typically gravitated toward, or the style of game or genre that the Eastern audience has gravitated towards. So I do think that you would have seen Metroid become a bigger franchise, but I do wonder if it would have lost some of what makes it so special in that transition. I think that it really would have been like you would have got a game like Metroid Prime Hunters, and that would have been your kind of standard Metroid game going forward. That's my opinion.
I don't think you're that far off. I certainly wouldn't be mad about it. I think it would certainly change how Metroid is made. I think we probably would have gotten more Metroid games over time. It absolutely would have been promoted way better, like without a doubt. It would definitely be like a much more mainstream franchise. I agree, and yeah, I think we would have gotten a lot more games over the past decade and a half. Um, I don't necessarily agree that it would become more of a classic first-person shooter. I think they could probably still retain the fundamental aspects of a more exploratory and casual FPS that Metroid Prime is, and not necessarily just make it like a Halo or Doom clone, which I think people might be afraid of. But I do agree. I think it would definitely be better promoted and more so made out to be a big deal and probably a bigger part of their smorgasbord of games that they advertise and promote. So I don't know. I don't necessarily agree that they would get rid of the 2D Metroids either, but I can't think of many like. Actually, no, because yeah, I don't think they would do that. Because when Microsoft really got more hands on with like other franchises, I feel like they kind of open things up to different kinds of styles for the franchises that they own. So like,
Well, they did, and Ori is a good example against my theory that they might have stopped 2D Metroid.
yeah, I
But
don't think they would get rid of 2D Metroids. Like I think
here's
that's
my
part
thing.
of Metroid's kind of formula and characters having those two different styles. I don't think they would just get rid of one of them.
I think that they might have, but to preface my thinking here, I'm kind of also thinking. I mentioned like imagine if this had taken place 20 years ago. I think that if this had taken place 20 years ago, 2D Metroid would have for sure been like kaput. If it happened today, maybe not. But
If it happened
I could
today,
still see
definitely
that
not.
happening.
I don't think so because like I mean there I mean you have like Minecraft for example, which like has different kinds of games now in different genres. You have like Halo, which has the original series, and you have like Halo Wars, which is like an RTS. Like I don't think I think they would have maintained that aspect of Metroid. You have two different kinds, and I also think they would have been very much aware of like the negative PR they would have gotten if they just stopped making the classic style of Metroid. So I maybe you're right. Maybe it would have been less emphasized had they had acquired Nintendo in 2001 or 2002 or whatever. But nowadays, I definitely think they would maintain both. I don't think they would get rid of 2D Metroid because in 2022 you pick up Metroid. I think it's right now so ingrained in its DNA being two different kinds of games. I just can't see them like especially now that like you said you have a lot of indie darlings and popular 2D games that still exist, and I don't see why that they can't continue to produce both. I think that they would emphasize the Prime series more, and I think the Prime series would become kind of the larger of the two styles and the more important in their eyes of the two styles. That I agree with, but I don't think we would see the end of 2D Metroid outright.
Okay, let's keep it moving here. Um, let's go to our buddy, the accursed hunter, Big Griff. Griff has a ton of questions, so we're only going to answer
Let's get a
a
couple
few
of
of
these.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's start off with this one. I think that this is a cool question. Do you think Samus will have her Prime 3 ship in Prime 4? Should she switch to her classic gunship by the time that Metroid Samus Returns happens? So I'm just going to ignore that second part of the question. So, which ship do I want her to have in Prime 4? I think that depends on where Prime 4 takes place in the timeline, because I know that a lot of people are like very much convinced that it's happening directly after Metroid Prime 3, and I think that probably is the case, but I also wouldn't say that it's impossible that it takes place somewhere else in the timeline. So I think that I don't know. Part of me feels like she'll just have a new ship. I just like I can't see them making Metroid Prime 4 and like just reusing the same ship from 15 years earlier. I think she'll have something new, something bombastic. Kind of similar to how like you got the new ship in Prime 3 and whatnot. So I don't know if there will be a storyline reason for this or not, but I do think that she'll have a new ride to get us going in Metroid Prime 4.
Well, that's a whole thing. Is like, where does the story take place? I'm still of the mind that Metroid Prime 4 is going to take place after Prime 3 and before Samus Returns. I wouldn't be surprised if Prime 4, 5, and 6 take place in that time. I really cannot see them having the Prime series take place like after Dread. I just wouldn't make any sense to me, because like, what's Silex been doing this whole time? Uh, but then again, a lot of other
I mean,
continuity
some of these
issues.
games though happen within like they
I
happen within a
guess
day. Like it's
that's
not like it's a
fair.
long time.
Still though, like I feel like he should be up to something, but that's fair. I still think it's going to take place after Metro Prime 3. I honestly would like to see the Corruption gunship return. That's one of my favorite designs. Like the Fusion ship at the end of Fusion is really cool. Obviously, you kind of see that in Dread as well. But like the Corruption, it's so nostalgic for me. The original design from Prime 1 is really good and also very nostalgic for me. But I love the Corruption version of the ship. It just looks so cool and different. I'm sure there might be a situation where maybe she starts with that ship and it gets destroyed or something, and she gets another one or whatever, which has happened before. But I would say I want them to do more like ship integration, kind of like how they did with Prime 3, where you had a little more functionality in using the ship when you're not in it or when you're in it. And I hope they continue that with Prime 4. So I think it would be cool to kind of bring that ship back and have it like showing up again and just like looking absolutely fantastic, and maybe in like 5 and 6 she gets a different ship. But I wouldn't be against having Prime 4 have her bring that ship back. I wouldn't, to be honest. I feel like we're gonna get the classic gunship, but I really like the Corruption gunship. I'm very nostalgic for it. It reminds me of when the build up to Corruption, and that the original reveal of Metroid Prime 3 at E3, where you have that like scene and the ship comes up behind Samus. Like, oh, that was so cool. I really love that, and I think it's an overall really awesome design that has some more utility, and it looks like more of an actual ship than Samus's other
Mm.
ships, which are very kind of stuck
It,
in
it
like a
looks like a
dated form.
gunship.
It
It
looks like a
looks like something
gunship.
that you would see in the sky shooting
Exactly.
something.
So
Looks sleek.
yes, it looks sleek. It looks badass. It looks aggressive. It looks like dangerous. It looks like you can get the job done, and you can get the job done with it. So I ultimately, I'm a big fan of that ship design. I would be really happy to see it back.
So Griff has one more. We're not going to get to all yours, Griff. I'm
Just
sorry,
pick one.
but there was a ton of ship questions. This dude was
Very
feeling his
concerned
ships here.
about the ship.
Yes. So Griff, I love this question though. I got to ask this. Many first-person shooters back in the day had big head mode. Would you like to see a
Big
big
shoulders
shoulder
mode.
pads mode instead? Samus's massive shoulders are so iconic. So I want to see someone push the limits, dude. I've got the game for you, buddy. Have you ever heard of Metroid Prime Federation Force? The whole game is big head mode, so you're gonna love that one. You know what? No, if Prime 4 has multiplayer, I would be open to seeing that come back as just kind of a chuckle. But I don't know. I mean, big head mode. Yeah.
I'm down for it. I think that kind of stuff is mad funny, and I'm with that. I give me big shoulder pad mode, give me big head mode, give me
Paintball mode.
give me
Oh,
chibi mode, give me Federation Force mode. Is like I said, and this is really goes for most things. If I want something added in the game, or you ask me, do you want this in the game? So yes, if it's an option. If I can play the game normally and then I can go and be, nutty with big shoulder mode or big arm cannon mode or chibi mode or anime mode, like that's totally fine as long as it's an option, it's a toggle, it's a switch. In that case, like, yeah, I'm almost always going to say yes to that because what's the downside if I don't want to do it? Like we were saying earlier with the customization, if you don't like it, you don't have to use it, you can turn it off. So in like a multiplayer setting, I think that stuff's really funny and cool, but also I really love that kind of stuff in like a campaign single player mode setting just because it looks so silly and like you get like cutscenes and just your character looks absolutely ridiculous. Like that just makes me laugh. And as long as I can
yeah.
play the game normally, otherwise, like that's I'm with it. And I think that would be a fun spin on it. As much as I would also like big head mode, I think having a more Metroid spin on it with big shoulder pad mode would be really funny. So yeah, I say yes to that.
Yeah. I mean, I say why not, right? Like, throw paintball mode in there. Throw all the like the classic
Splatoon
GoldenEye cheats
mode.
in there. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Um, we had a question, and I forget who asked it, but I thought it was a cool question. What is your favorite Metroid logo? Hmm.
My favorite Metroid logo.
Yeah. So I actually, I've always been fairly partial to the Metroid Fusion logo. I think that it looks cool.
Yes.
The blue, I think looks really nice. You still have the classic like screw attack logo in the background, but the colors are
Mm-hmm.
different to kind of fit the theme. So I think that one is really slick. It's Super Metroid, obviously. Just the classic logo. That's kind of like your generic like standard Zelda Sword and Shield logo or whatever. Like that's kind of where it all originated from. Um, I don't know. I think that Echoes has a pretty cool logo as well.
Ah, I was
Did I
gonna.
steal yours?
Yeah, I was gonna.
Okay,
So
I'm sorry.
no,
I'll
no.
let you
I
go.
mean, there's only so many ones you can you can
Yeah.
pick from. Yeah, I was gonna. I mean, Metroid Fusion, of course. I love how it's not just the standard font, and it has a little more of like a waviness to it. It looks a little more devilishly, looking. I love how it has that spin on, the classic kind of lightning bolt screw attack. And the colors, yeah, Metroid Fusions. But I think my favorite is Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. It looks so cool. I love the straight up like ball in the back without the lightning. You have like the glowing like gray silverish kind of aura to it. And even like the letters look dope. It's just like flat steel. Like it's just so
Hmm.
cold and dark. Like it fits the game so well. Uh, I mean the original Metroid Prime logo is probably like tied with me too.
Oh yeah. Also, just a
It's just
classic.
a
Yeah.
classic. I would have to go with those two. Those three, but like those are all my favorites. Also from my favorite games. But I think
I'm partial to the logos with the screw attack in the background in some fashion.
yes,
Like I'm
I
looking at
agree.
Dread and Samus Returns, and
They don't have the
those are fine.
same
Like the
feel.
font is
Yes,
fine. Yeah, it's just
I
it's not
love
the
I
same.
love that the screw attack logo in the back. I think really makes it
Yeah.
for me. The
Let
weird
me let me
one.
throw this out there, Dak.
Okay.
I actually don't mind the logo for Federation Force because
Huh.
it's not the screw attack in the back, but it's like the insignia for the Federation instead. Like the actual
Hmm.
Federation Force font looks a little bit goofy. Like I feel like if it was in a straight line instead of like kind of curved, it might look cooler. But I don't mind this logo.
I'm not a big fan of it. It does feel very like it kind of gives me like Buzz Lightyear Star Command vibes. I don't know. Like, it just feels very Disney-ish to me. I don't know. It just something about it.
uh,
Which, by the way, I love that show. Don't get me wrong,
that would be that would be
but
awesome.
I don't know. That doesn't really. It's too much going on.
You know what? Hold
Not a
on.
big fan.
Let
Metroid
me try and
Prime.
speak in English here. Metroid Prime Blast Ball. That's actually a sick logo.
Metroid
Go
Prime
go and Google this logo.
Blast
It's
Blast.
awesome.
Metroid Prime
It's got like a
Blast
soccer
Ball.
ball. It's got green and steel coloring, and
Oh
it looks
yeah,
really cool.
it doesn't look bad. And honestly, I even say the well, there's a couple different logos I think for Metroid Prime 3. There's one where it's just the silver kind of text over like a horizon in like a,
Yeah.
that one I like a lot. But then there's also another version where it's like over like phase, and it's like the Metroid text is in like red, blue, white, and then Prime 3 is in like orange, and then Corruption. Like, I don't know what they were doing with that one logo. The other logo I like.
That's got to be a fan made logo, isn't it?
May
This can't be real.
I don't know. I feel like I haven't seen it before, so maybe it is fan made. I like the regular Metroid Prime 3 logo, and honestly, I think even the Metroid Other M logo is not bad. Like, it's if that was for a good game, I don't think it would. I kind of like the Horizon thing going on. I think is really cool. I just wish the game had a better title and a better
Eh,
game. I think it's all right.
it's a little bit too plain Jane.
It
for
is a
me.
bit plain, I will say that. Like, stacked up against Metroid Fusion or Prime 2, it doesn't at all stack up.
Yeah. Okay, we've let's do two more here. Papa Rick asks, "What if you could grab items with the Grapple Beam?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like you can
Yes.
do that in Smash already, can't you?
Can you?
Can you? Maybe I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know. I mean, you could grab the edge and smash with your grapple beam.
Yes, you can do that.
Doesn't seem like that big of a stretch to be able to grab like
I don't think you can grab
a
items
Max
in
Heart
Smash.
or Max Tomato or something like that. Yeah, this should totally be a thing in Metroid. Sure.
I'm probably exposing myself for my Smash knowledge, but the best of my knowledge, I don't think you can do that. I know you can grab obviously other people in the ledge. I don't think you can grab items. That would be really broken in the context of Smash. So, and I don't think I've ever.
I guess you're right. Actually,
And I don't,
yeah, you're probably
and
right.
like of all the time I've spent playing Smash, I don't think I've ever seen that happen once. So I'm gonna say you can't do that in Smash. But yes, we were talking about this recently too. I think on either Twitter or Discord. Like, I want the grapple beam and grapple hook to be a much more significant part of the Prime gameplay loop. Like, I don't limit me to grapple hooks. Like, let me grapple onto any surface. Let me grapple items to me. Let me grapple myself to things. Let me grapple in enemies, and let me just get absolutely wild with it. That kind of stuff is 100% what I want to see in Metroid Prime 4. And, being able to like quickly grapple something to me and load it up and let it loose, or, grapple myself to any surface, like that kind of stuff really opens up the game, makes it feel, or gives it more potential to allow players to express their own individual freedom in terms of how they approach a game. And as someone who played Pathfinder and Apex Legends, who enjoyed that part of Halo Infinite's campaign, and certainly in the multiplayer, I love grapple hooks. So yes, give me more grapple hook usage. Absolutely.
I feel like that's not a hard ask either. Like Metroid Prime
It's
3
not.
had a ton of interactive grapple
Exactly.
points on enemies and in the environment and stuff
Metroid
like
Prime
that.
3 is so good. I got to go back and replay that. I love all the different things that they tried in that game, and I think it was held back by the motion control. It wasn't held back, but I wish some of that stuff was just like regularly delivered, like with dual analog. But like, there's so many cool ideas in Metroid Prime 3. I hope they expand on. The grapple hook's certainly one of them. Like, I still remember the first time that I like pulled a space pirate shield off of one of them. Right, I was like, oh yeah, like that was sick. Like 15-year-old me was so hyped about that. I think I was 15. But maybe I was a bit younger, older. I don't know. But I thought that was awesome. I loved that, and that was like okay, I'm getting this Wii thing. Like, I'm seeing the appeal. As much as I didn't like holding my arm up and pointing at the screen for hours at a time. It's aside from that, I there's so many cool things that they can build on from Prime 3 that is
I mean, even
100% one of
Metroid
them.
Dread, like you can grapple shields, you can grapple stuff
You can
in
grapple
a
shields.
non-gimmicky
You
way.
can grapple to a wall real quick and zip up. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff. 100%. Give me more of that.
All right, last one here, then we're gonna dip. This is from our buddy Russ from the Tomes of Evil podcast. What kind of mechanics would you implore into the next Metroid if Samus's Metroid Drain ability returns? I could see it working in one of two ways. A Dark Souls style system where the drain foes give you drops, whether that be some sort of currency or health and ammo, or a situation, of course, our boy throws in Kirby, or a situation like Kirby where Samus briefly obtains the abilities of her prey. What do you guys think? So that sounds actually pretty cool, and to be honest with you, I could see it working both ways. I could see that, assuming that this returns, I think that for your common enemy, like, I don't even think you would necessarily drain your common enemy, but let's say that if you did, then you just get like your standard ammo or health or whatever. But a more important enemy, like let's say in Metroid Prime, when you're fighting the not the Omega Pirate, but the other big pirates that you fight periodically through the game. Let's say that you fight those guys, and that you can go up to them and counter them, and maybe you can suck some of their abilities away, and it stays with you for a few moments. And it's almost like you could almost use it in the sense of like a way to finish off that enemy. Like you can battle them until they are finally vulnerable. Then you can suck up their powers, use it against them quickly, and that's how you vanquish the foe. I could definitely see that. I could see that returning in the sense of like you fight a boss and like instead of, as we were talking about at the top of the show, getting powers and abilities from Chozo statues, maybe they go back and take a page out of Metroid Prime 2's book where like you're fighting, I don't know, the Spider Guardian or something like that, and you just suck his life out, and then you get the Spider Ball, or you get the Super Missiles, or whatever, right? Like, I could see that totally being a thing that they do in Metroid 6. So yeah, I think that both of those actually like have a fairly decent chance of happening in the next game.
Yeah,
So,
because
yeah, good idea.
I'm thinking, yeah, that would be for like the next 2D Metroid. I mean, I could even see it being incorporated into like Metroid Prime 4, but again, I don't think that's happening before Dread or after Dread. I think it's happening before that, so I don't think that would make sense story wise. But like, I really like the Kirby idea. Like, I'm fighting this enemy, I'm going to use their abilities real quick, but I don't even think it would be limited to, okay, I do a finisher on them, I get their abilities, and that's how I beat them real quick. As much as that would also be a great way to integrate it, I think it'd be interesting to integrate it into like puzzles, right? Like I got to beat this enemy, take their ability, use it to open up this thing before time runs out and I lose the ability.
Yeah, that'd be
great.
great.
Stuff
Yeah.
like that would be really interesting because then you got to be, not only smart combat wise, but you got to take advantage of stuff in a limited amount of time, gives you a little urgency, and you kind of have to traverse a level not just based on, all right, I'm going to do this little puzzle, but also I got to beat certain enemies maybe in a certain order, in a certain way, or whatever it is, and kind of working it that way. That would be really cool. I mean, you could even go back to what we were just talking about. What if I grapple something and I'm able to steal its ability long range or something like that? I don't even have to get close to it. I can just, just whip at it from 50 feet away and steal its abilities. Like, Kirby has some good ideas, man. I'm not against that kind of stuff. I think that would work really well, I think, for a 2D Metroid, probably the follow-up to Metroid 6. That'd be cool. I think that'd be a nice, if they gave it a Metroid twist, a cool feature for the next game.
I think it would be too. And I would also like to get some more like Metroid powers going on in the next game where
Yep.
like, I don't know, maybe you can use some of the attacks that the Metroids use in Samus Returns, or do like I want them to go crazy with it because I do think that this is coming back and I'm going to be upset if it doesn't. So yeah, you know what? I'll give it to you, Russ. You thought I was mad at you last week for bringing up Kirby, and I was raging mad at you, but you've redeemed yourself with this Kirby idea this week. So
Maybe you can turn
good
into
idea.
like a ball, like in Kirby Canvas Curse. Like maybe in Metroid.
I can
you
already
could...
turn into a ball in a Metroid game.
I know that's the joke. Yes. But yeah, I'm down.
All right. Well, that is our part 2 of Metroid Q&A. Thank you guys so much for all the questions. We didn't get to all of them. We wish we could, or else we'd be here for absolutely forever. But man, we'll do this again soon, very soon. But we got a cool couple of shows coming up in the next few weeks here. We got a new mapping Metroid coming your way very, very, very soon, and as well as our super show on the 13th, where we're going to be doing some Metroid and Zelda trivia. So that's going to be going down. We'll get you the exact time for that next week, but definitely make sure that you're tuning in for that. Until then, everybody, we are going to get out of here. Of course, we want to encourage you guys to check us out over on Twitter at Omega Metroid Pod, at Spiteri316, and at DaxCity_, and throw us a follow over on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, by God, recommend us to that Metroid fan in your life. Tell them where they can get their weekly Metroid fix. That's it. That's all. We are out of here, and we will see everybody next week. Take care, have a great week, and we'll talk soon.